Richard Justice of MLB.com. And a man who has been covering this sport for decades joins us here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Richard?
I'm good, Rich. How are you today?
Is that a fair assessment of the Marlins situation, Richard?
The fair assessment is these fans have been put through too much. They've been put through too many reconstructions. Build hope, tear down, build hope, tear down. And you're right, they did contribute to building a ballpark. On the other hand, the franchise had to have the ballpark. Here's what Derek Jeter has to do, Rich. He has to come in and give them some credibility. I'm okay with this plan. I'm okay with trading all these guys and breaking people's hearts again and accumulating talent. I'm just saying this time you have to stay the course. You can't have a change in ownership. You can't have a change in baseball ops. You can't fire the manager every 20 minutes every time you get upset about something. The credibility is zero in that market for that franchise, and everyone knows it. That's why baseball, Scott, one of the things Scott said, they need to do a better job of vetting owners. Baseball was honored and thrilled to have Derek Jeter involved because he did bring credibility, but it's going to take months and years to do it. It's not going to happen overnight, and these are tough times when you trade a player like Giancarlo Stanton, and you've traded your 3 or your 4 best players is what you've done, and you're probably going to trade the other guy, Christian Yelich. It's bad, but, I lived through it in Houston. I've seen what the Reds are trying to do, what the Brewers tried to do. It is hard. It is hard to watch.
But what happened in Houston, it's because, the guys who had been there for so long just got old and they weren't replaced. And, now 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame, and Biggio and Bagwell, Richard. I mean, didn't baseball know that the guy that Jeter would be working for was known as the paper shredder in the newspaper business, Richard? A business that you obviously know very well. Did they not know that the guy who buys it, and this is the problem too, is that if you're buying a team for $1.2 billion in a market that has helped build a stadium to inflate that value, shouldn't the fans expect a $115 million payroll to be kept at that, if not maybe added to, since they have enough money to buy the team? Why must they sell off? Why can't they have $135 million payroll and use the guys that they have and build around them?
Right after Scott Boras said those things about the Marlins, he also tried to convince the Red Sox, you can sign both Eric Hosmer and J.D. Martinez. It's only money. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. They met all the ownership requirements for baseball. In a perfect world, you would like to say, okay, we're going to come in, we're going to throw money up, we're going to have a $200 million payroll the first year. Because that was a team that was close. You had pitching to that group, and I think they'd be pretty good. Remember the Marlins did that a couple of years ago. It didn't work out. The attendance didn't spike up, and they tore it down a few years. I would just say this. I was talking to Michael Hill, the Marlins president of baseball ops yesterday, and he said, listen, Derek Jeter didn't get into this thing to fail. We're going to succeed, and it's not going to be pretty at the beginning. And I know people are sick and tired of hearing that we're going through this again. You're putting us through this again. There has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. My only point would be, I know Derek Jeter, and I trust the guy, and if he says this is the best path to get out of this, do it.
All right, Richard Justice, let's move on here to other items. Why is Manny Machado on the trade block?
Because he's a year away from free agency. This is not a good time to trade a guy a year away from free agency. The Orioles have Zach Britton, one of the best closers in the game, a year away, and they have Adam Jones, the face of their franchise, a year away from free agency. Oh, and by the way, their general manager are in the final years of their contract. I don't think they're going to trade him. I don't think Peter Angelos would approve that. But what you have to do is and the Rays are doing the same thing with Chris Archer and other guys. You have to do your due diligence and say, would this be the best move? The best move would have been to have a longer view and to trade him at the All-Star break last year or a year ago at this time. It is very tough to trade a guy a year out. Now, here's what you could do. You could trade him to the White Sox, and the White Sox could flip him to the Yankees. But the Yankees have a great farm system, but they seem to be engaged on getting a starting pitcher, i.e. Garrett Cole at this point. So I think the reason you do it is just to be able to go back to ownership and say, here are our options on this, because he is going to test the market. We know that. And he is, he's 25 years old, Rich. He's he's a great player. And the idea that, I mean, when you get into the marketplace, the numbers, and we all talk about Bryce Harper, but the numbers on Machado are going to be pretty spectacular too, and that puts a franchise in uncertain water.
Yeah, and it all makes Stanton's numbers maybe at the end of the day a bargain.
Well,
Right.
I think that's one of the reasons free agency's been held up. You know, every team tried to get Ohtani, and then Stanton had to be resolved. So if you're Scott Boras and you've got Eric Hosmer and J.D. Martinez, you look at that deal, 10 years, $295. That's what's left on Stanton. You go, okay, that's where we'll start. That's where we'll start the conversation. Everything is connected to every other little thing.
Richard Justice of MLB.com joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what is the market of the other top free agents, and does Boras control all of it?
Yeah, he does control. He controls, I think, the top four: Hosmer, Moustakas, J.D. Martinez, and Jake Arrieta. We're in the trade phase right now. We're going to see what the Rays are doing, what the Orioles are doing in terms of trading their guys, and then we'll get down to business. And Scott Boras, I mean, the Red Sox want to do a deal, Rich. They want to do a deal yesterday for J.D. Martinez and or Eric Hosmer. But Scott likes to let the market play out, and you have X factors involved. You know, the Brewers have money to spend. The Twins have money to spend. The Angels, the Padres. I mean, there are lots of teams that are going to be engaged in this market. And so you have a very aggressive general manager in Boston and Dave Dombrowski, but Scott is just not inclined to do anything really fast.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, let's talk about the Angels, not only just because this show is on Angels Radio, KLAA, every single day, but Ohtani is just such a fascinating story and fascinating figure. What is baseball looking into about with his elbow? Richard, walk me through this process here.
Oh, that part's simple. Medical reports are supposed to be confidential. Somebody leaked a medical report, and if the commissioner finds out who it was, it's going to be unpleasant. It's going to be bad. Because what's the motivation to leak this? And what he has is something that a ton of pitchers have in their elbow. He's getting these injections, but this was not something that scared off any team. You know, in the winter meetings, people were going, okay, who would do something like that? And you go, Texas? And I'd say, no, I know John Daniels. He would not do that. You know, we went down the list. Somebody did it, and, you know, the commissioner is pissed.
So this is in terms of for the Angels, no buyer beware, no caveat emptor. It's just what a lot of pitchers have, and they're going to put him out there every fifth day, and he's going to rake, and we're going to see if he really can live up to the hype. Richard? Yeah,
it's a whole new world. We haven't done this in 99 years. Babe Ruth last year in Boston. You know, it tells you that the teams are being run by people who are more open-minded about it, willing to look at the world a different way. The Rays used the fourth pick in the 17 draft on a kid named Brendan McKay from Louisville. This summer he played first base and pitched, DH'd, did it fine. The Dodgers sent a young guy named Brett Eibner who pitched at Arkansas and played center field. They sent him back to the minor leagues. Okay, we're going to make you a pitcher and a hitter. He blew out his elbow, but when he comes back, they're looking at him as he's a guy that can save us a roster spot. Will it work? You know, for people like me who've seen the way Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander work between starts, it's so intense, the work. It's hard for me to imagine them going to play first base or DHing or play the outfield after going through a full day's work. But you have to be able to look at it. And the one thing Ohtani wanted to hear is, Mike Scioscia, are you willing to give this a try? He wants to do it badly. And, you know, and I think now scouts, Rich, when they scout college guys, a lot of these guys pitch and hit both. And they always have this argument. Well, you know, maybe we're looking at a time where we're going to do both because this is a new generation of general managers who are open to things like that.
Richard, have a great holiday season and New Year. We'll chat with you down the line when things begin heating up again.
Thank you, Rich. Same to you.
You bet. That's Richard Justice, at Richard Justice on Twitter, MLB.com.
For more Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Rich Eisen Show app.